Hey, everyone. Welcome to Locked on Lakers for Friday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. The Lakers lose Thursday night 111-110 to the Clippers at the Crypt. And what better way to celebrate, Andy, than with a crossover episode with the Locked on Clippers guys, William Updike, Charles Mockler. They're going to join us for the show, and we'll get going next on Locked on Lakers.
You are Locked on Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I want to thank everybody for making Locked on Lakers your first listen of every day, or perhaps Locked on Clippers your first listen of every day, or a special shout out to the people who press play on both at exactly the same time. Podcasts are free wherever you get your podcasts, and every day, Monday through Friday. Great stuff. William Updike, Charles Mockler, they are the hosts of Locked on Clippers. They are joining us for a crossover episode. Guys, how are you? It's nice to meet you.
Good to meet you too. I'm stressed after that game, but feeling happy and looking forward to the inevitable play-in matchup that we have with these two teams.
Can't wait. We were talking about that, William. I want to say on Thursday's show just how after all of the lead up and years that we've heard about Lakers Clippers, it's finally happening in the playoffs. This goes back at least 15 or so years with, the Kobe Smush Kwame team that lost 3-1 in the opening round against the Suns. After the Clippers had handled their business against the Nuggets, they ended up getting eliminated the next round by the Suns. If we finally end up getting something playoff adjacent between these two teams, and it's the play-in, the basketball gods just hate LA. I don't know what the hell we did, William, to offend them, but clearly we did.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like on one hand, that's how you draw interest for the play-in. So I'm not going to say it's a fix, but who knows? Who knows?
LeBron is fine.
Yeah, so is Kawhi and PG. They're good.
I saw Paul George bowling. He was bowling switch the other night. That almost seems fine.
Oh, what if all of them, like LeBron, Kawhi, Paul George, like they all make these grand entrances right before the play-in game, like WWE style. Like LeBron removes the cast, like the fake cast, while sitting in the wheelchair, like whatever that long-haired wrestler was.
Mankind.
Kevin Nash, actually, I believe.
Oh.
Kawhi's coming down from the rafters like Sting. We already know that that's 100% happening.
Good. I'm glad we figured all of this out. This is fantastic.
It's Apple time at that point.
Wasting it on one game, but still.
Well, this was, I know we joked, but this was a really significant game because, there is a huge difference between being the 8 seed and being the 9 seed when it comes to the play-in. Because if you're the 7 or the 8, Minnesota won Thursday night, so they gained a game. They're actually now 2 games over 500, so the Clippers keep pace with them. The Lakers are now a game and a half behind the Clippers and 2.5 games behind Minnesota. But if you can stay in that 7-8 spot, you only have to win once to get into the big boy playoffs. If you fall to the 8 or 9, you got to win twice. And so it is a big deal that the Clippers managed to win this one and the Lakers comeback fell short. At what point, we'll start here with Andy. This pattern the Lakers have had all year of falling behind big, making a feverish comeback. Usually they don't have as much time on the clock as they had on Thursday. Usually they don't pull ahead like they did on Thursday. Were you surprised that they let this get away?
I'm never going to be surprised.
I shouldn't. That was a stupid way of putting it.
The hell kind of question is that, man? Have you been?
But you understand what I mean? Like, did you? Let me put it this way: did you think they were going to win? That's better.
I did actually think they were going to win because it really felt like the momentum had shifted in their direction. Like they were really feeling this in a way where it's like, okay, maybe that talent gap that is there right now with no Kawhi, no Paul George for the Clippers, and the Lakers at least having Anthony Davis, who is the best player on the court in this situation, and Russell Westbrook, who is, even with all the stuff that comes with Russ, he's one of the probably 5 best players on the court during this, or at least can be one of the
that's a
5 best
That
players.
is a scathing indictment of Russell Westbrook.
Well,
where he is. I'm just saying
I'm
it
just-
is because the
look,
other
man,
guys are Nick Batum and Marcus Morris and Serge
Hey.
Ibaka and Reggie.
Well, I was
fine
counting Malik
players,
Monk.
all
I
of
was
them,
counting
but-
Malik Monk. I was counting a couple guys on the Lakers. But either way, I mean, and Russ really had it going in the fourth quarter. Malik Monk had it going in the fourth quarter, and I don't know. I mean, Charles, it felt to me too like the Clippers sense that this thing was getting away from them too. It wasn't even so much like all the Lakers, but like the Clippers felt like, what the hell, man? Like, how did these guys get back into this thing?
I mean, you go 0-8 to start the fourth quarter. Like, so with every Clippers game, you talked about how the Lakers have had these furious comebacks and then come up short. Story of the Clippers too, but sometimes we happen to come back down from 35 against a horrible Wizards team. But you start the fourth 0-8, there was a drought coming for the Clippers. We've watched enough Clippers games to know that there's going to be a 3-minute drought at least, but this was a very long drought. And then this team just doesn't, I know it's just so corny, but Ty Lue talks about it too. Like, they've just drilled down that the game's not over, you know? And I think while technically this was a Clippers home game, I think they were fueled off some of the, you know, the crowd noise going crazy. I mean, after that AD oop to kind of put you guys ahead, I was like, that was a really well run play. Like, I don't know. But then we saw Reggie Jackson start to skip with the ball, and everyone in the stadium knew it was over at that point, I think, if you were a Clippers fan.
That was, William, the body language of a man who said, I have decided I'm going to take the final shot for my team, win or lose. Everybody get the F out of my way. I mean, Reggie, you knew, I mean, I guess everybody but Russell Westbrook, who was defending him rather casually.
And Austin Reaves.
Yeah. But, I mean, William, it was really clear Reggie Jackson made up his mind. He was going to put that thing up.
I mean, he's a hugely confident player, and it's like one of the things I love and hate about Reggie Jackson. Like, as Clippers fans, we call it the Reggie Jackson roller coaster because, like, there is some beautiful ups, but there is also a lot of downs, and like you just kind of have to ride it out. But the thing, like, he's never shaken. You know, he's one of the guys, and I admire guys like that who can be, you know, 0 of 8 from the field. It doesn't matter; they're gonna take the shot. And he saw the matchup that he liked, and you know. We've seen him with a couple of times with these game winners this season, and I love that he has the confidence and, like, you know, these are the moments, these are the ups of the roller coaster that get me through the really scary down parts.
No, it sounds. I'll be honest with you. It sounds like you're talking about Russell Westbrook.
I was just going to say,
it only
these teams
costs
have
you.
a mirror.
It only costs you $10.5 million to ride the Reggie Jackson roller coaster, whereas the Westbrook roller coaster is a lot more expensive. And it's like
Westbrook may have been kind of a mentor to Reggie Jackson during that period in OKC.
That's a good call, actually. That's a super good call.
I think Reggie likes lighting Russ up, and like it was funny, like that last play. I mean, clearly, I think he knew the Lakers were going to switch, and I think he knew he was going to end up with Austin Reaves on him. And quite frankly, for the Lakers, that's a much better deal. Reaves is a much better defender than Jackson is, although stopping Reggie on the dribble with no help on, you know, what Russ was doing with that sort of soft double was useless, and Monk was late, and AD wasn't there. Like, they left Reaves on an island, and, you know, Reggie Jackson's a role player, but he's a really talented offensive role player. And, you know, they didn't give him much help. But had he just ended up on Russ, I don't think it would have ended any differently. if anything, Reggie probably dunks that ball.
What was interesting for me in this game is, okay, so Serge Ibaka. We have to talk about the fact that Serge had, 20 and 9 and 2 blocks. What is the Lakers situation where they're having AD not guard Serge? He's out on the perimeter, kind of guarding perimeter guys, and Serge is kind of getting to feast on those smaller guys. Okay. I loved it, obviously.
This is something Brian and I talked about this after the loss in Atlanta, because the Hawks were getting all these looks where Okongwu was just going nuts on lobs or, you know, drives and getting dishes where he's running baseline, stuff like that. And they kept setting up. And I even rewatched the fourth quarter. It wasn't like AD was getting pulled away from the basket on switches. And, you know, they ended up with Stanley Johnson on a smaller guy or as a smaller guy on Okongwu. That's how they were setting up. Yeah. And I didn't understand it either. I actually asked a couple of people we know who cover this team, did you see that too? Did you understand it either? And none of them did. This is just sort of what they're doing at times. Like they're leaving a lot of this to either Stanley Johnson or other guys, and I don't quite get it either.
Is that a preservation thing, like for the postseason, where like maybe you just hope to
get
everybody
two
fully
games
healthy
to
by
get
the
in?
playoffs?
If it is, that's kind of arrogant, William, right now.
Fair.
I you know what? This is a perfect opportunity to seg to our next topic, because Andy and I really want to talk to you guys about former Lakers head coach Ty Lue. Briefly, well, he had a cake and everything ready to go.
Yeah.
Briefly was the head coach of the Lakers, but now, of course, across the hallway in the building with the Clippers, because the coaching for both of these teams, I think, is a major talking point. We'll get into it next.
Locked On Lakers and Locked On Clippers, both brought to you by Bet Online. There may be less football being played right now, but betonline.net has way more odds and info for this playoff season, from scores, totals, and playoff performance props to where the next fired coach is going to land. BetOnline is the number one spot.
You say that like they're shooting him out of a cannon. You don't know where he's going to end up falling back to earth.
It's just,
which, by the way, would be a really intriguing way to fire coaches.
That's how they used to back in the 70s.
What a
then
decade.
Congress got involved and said you can't do that anymore. BetOnline is the number one spot for all things NFL betting in 2022. And it's not just football. BetOnline.net's basketball, hockey, boxing, and UFC odds coverage is the best in the business, from sports right down to your favorite Vegas casino games. BetOnline is your number one online wagering destination. BetOnline, the fastest, easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports and play your favorite games. BetOnline, where the games start.
Okay, so Lakers fans, the Lakers organization, all of these things, like, Frank Vogel, his job security has been a talking point, we'll say, since about game 3.
Sure.
And I don't think the Lakers are going to make a coaching change between now and the end of the year. I do not think Frank Vogel will be back next year, unless the Lakers win a title. Meaning, I don't think Frank Vogel will be back next year. But Ty Lue, I think, is given a lot of credit for the fact that the Clippers are at 500, that they're sticking around, that they're in the play-in, with it maybe an outside chance to move up depending on when the Paul George and Kawhi Leonard get back. Before we get into the comparison to those guys, William, we'll start with you. Like, what is Ty doing that works so well, that has got this team going well, and people talking about him as a coach of the year candidate with a 500 team?
Even looking back, by the way, really quick, William, to last year in the playoffs, with losing Kawhi during the playoffs, and the Clippers really performing very well in the Western Conference Finals, all things considered.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that he is like one of those coaches that's a great motivator of men. Like, he just gets a team behind him. This team, like in its current era, has had 2 head coaches, and like just the stark difference between the playoff endings of both of those coaches, just the belief that he has instilled in everybody across this roster. And it's one of those things that's like easy to talk about. I mean, like, every coach is going to talk about that they believe in guy 1 through 15 or whatever, but for whatever reason, like, he connects with everybody, and everyone's role is so drilled in and so clear that everybody on the floor has like it's a trickle down effect that actually works, where that belief in everybody is carrying over to everyone on the floor. And what he's been able to do shorthanded, like, there are times where I'm like head scratching at some of these rotations, especially like in this game against the Lakers, that fourth quarter. I thought we rode a little bit too long with a bench unit that could not get a bucket, but I mean, he figures it out. Like, what he had, the hand he has to deal with is so slim, and what he's been able to do with it, like, I am continually impressed.
Do you think at all, Charles, that his background as a point guard, and just like the specifics that come with running an offense, running sets, and just sort of having to understand personnel in general? I mean, even as somebody who was a journeyman point guard, never a starter, never like high level. This was his gig as a player. Do you see any connection like that? Am I reading too much into trying to figure some of this out?
No, I think you're totally right. I think he's one of the best tactician coaches just in the NBA as well. Like I mean,
Yes.
people give LeBron a bunch of credit for the chip they won over the Warriors, but you still got to outcoach Steve Kerr.
He played a role, Charles.
Yeah, he did. He helped a little bit with that. And you look at
he should get a little credit.
Yeah, and you look at the guys that he's played with as a point guard. He's played with Michael Jordan. He was on those Lakers teams. He's played with complete lunatics who are obsessed with winning and want to do it the right way, and he has to be their point guard, so they need him to be really good and drilled in with everything. So I think you're totally right. I think that absolutely plays a part in it. And I mean, there's stories of the bubble where Ty Lue talked to Doc about, hey, maybe we shouldn't play Trez so much when the other team is absolutely killing him on the floor, and Doc basically just saying no, and we all saw how that worked out.
No.
So yeah, he wheezed at him, but yeah, like that. I mean, he has respect to the players because of the championship caliber. He's a very intelligent coach, and yeah, I mean, he has them actually believing in themselves. Where I think Doc Rivers kind of got guys believing in the moment as opposed to the whole end goal.
Well, I'll tell you, like the biggest difference that I see between these two teams, and some of it is, I mean, look, I don't think Frank Vogel's a bad coach.
He's
Lakers fans.
Also, we love Frank Vogel. Like as a coach, the defense that he had you guys playing when LeBron and AD was out last season, like he knows what he's doing.
Right, and that's what I want to get to, because like, look, Lakers fans, I think, are so frustrated at this point that they've decided that the amount of floor time that Avery Bradley gets is why the team is 3 games under 500. Like if Avery Bradley played 10 minutes instead of 20,
yeah,
like they'd be 10 games over 500. And I say this as somebody who really doesn't think Avery Bradley should be playing. And
you're preaching to the choir.
Oh, we know.
I defend Frank for all kinds of things. I cannot defend him for that. But the Lakers are a bad offensive team, especially
so are
when
the Clippers.
doesn't play, and so are the Clippers.
Yeah,
the Lakers are a bad defensive team. The Clippers are not. Personnel wise, that's what I see as one of the biggest differences in these two teams, because the Lakers are a brutally difficult team, particularly again when LeBron's not playing, to make good defensively. Whereas I think the Clippers have more of a group that you could say, well, if everybody's playing hard, they could actually play a little defense. That last play of the game on Thursday night was a perfect microcosm of what's wrong with the Lakers defensively, where the help doesn't come. Your point guard is sort of helping, but not really. And, you give up what essentially amounts to an easy, uncontested layup to Reggie Jackson. And so, mechanically speaking, is this a Lue thing, or is it some degree the roster, or a little bit of both? The fact that the Clippers can play consistent defense, which keeps them in games.
It's a little bit of both. I think from the roster construction, we've seen an emphasis on like these two-way wings that can kind of do a little bit of everything. Like we like the versatility to be able to go small. And it's, like it's a double-edged sword, right? Because isn't this why every year the conversation is that the Clippers need a real point guard, and that's what the problem is with the team?
Oh my God.
But like,
I say the conversation with the Lakers this year is they could use a wing or 2 or 3, or particularly a 2-way wing. So maybe we'll take one of the too many that you have.
So it's definitely a little bit of both, but Ty, does know how to get the best out of these guys. But there's also just been, I think Nick Batum is like a huge part of the defensive identity of this team, because like what he does on the floor, like he is, to me, I don't know that many other like a casual NBA fan would really think this, but Nick Batum to me is like an unmovable asset. Like what he does on both ends of the floor, and like how he's able to basically make every lineup a little bit better. He can plug a hole almost anywhere. It is one of those things that, like, yes, roster wise, we are kind of fortunate in that way, but it's also just that same kind of mentality of getting those guys into those sort of spots where like their skill sets can be utilized.
That's interesting too, just because Nick Batum and Reggie Jackson are both these reclamation projects that the Clippers have had over the last couple of years. And Nobody was quite sure how that was going to end up working out. And, both those guys were not coming off the most shining moments of their careers. And I think it speaks to whatever Ty Lue does in terms of seeing what players can do and bringing out of them. But it also just seems to me, and I'd be curious what you guys think about this, because it's probably the biggest area of contention that I have with Frank Vogel that doesn't have to do with just specific questions about rotations or whatever. I don't think he's a very creative coach, at least offensively, if nothing else. And it seems to me from the outside looking in, and a lot of this can be you don't watch it when you don't watch a team game in, game out, you can develop certain rosy impressions. But Ty seems like a really creative coach on top of some of the other things he does.
Yeah, I think Ty and Spoelstra are the two guys where it's like, if you just gave them a new 15 every game, you're still going to probably get a creative offense. Like there's games where Kawhi and PG will be out and Nick Batum's still getting 9 clean 3-point looks a game. And you're like, how is this happening without the gravity of these two guys? Like that in and of itself is like incredible when he gets those attempts off. But yeah, I mean, he's a tactician. Like he just knows what he's doing. And it's funny because with Doc, when Doc was shorthanded, like when we had shorthand, rough schedule, guys are out, Doc was great when he was forced to kind of throw things at the wall and see if they stuck. Ty Lue's kind of always in that mode, but he's also an infinitely better coach. So I think it helps it out.
And that's one of the things, like, I think the Lakers are not going to fire Vogel at before the end of the year. I could be wrong. If they did it, they probably need to do it around the All-Star break. Give yourself a chance to kind of have a few days. But
to implement Rambus.
Exactly.
God. Coach
There
Kerr.
is no other team. I say it as much as I possibly can. There is not another of the 29 other teams in the NBA or perhaps even in the G League that would let Kurt Rambis that close to the levers of power, or levers if you prefer. I prefer levers. But like, I don't think they're going to fire Vogel. I also don't think they're going to bring him back. But I also wonder what they're going to replace him with, because they had a chance to pay for Ty Lue, who I think is one of the 5 best coaches in the NBA. I think he is in that upper group of these sort of elite guys like Spo that make a difference in how many games you win, independent of the roster that you give them. Most other coaches will take a good roster and they'll make it good. A bad roster they probably can't rescue. And then there are a few guys in the league who will drag down good players. Vogel's somewhere in that middle group. I just don't know if they're going to go out and get somebody better and pay for somebody better if that person is available, because I don't think Rob Pelinka values coaches very much. Either that or just the team has decided that's not where their budget is going. But it doesn't do you a lot of good to fire Frank Vogel if you replace him with Frank Vogel. And that's sort of my take on this whole thing. That said, they only gave him a year last year in the offseason. If they go back into next year, they're only going to give him another year. You can't keep doing this. So either change coaches or commit to Frank Vogel. Andy, what do you think they'll do?
I think they're going to ride it out for this season, if for no other reason than I don't think they're going to want to pay Vogel a year and a half not to work. I think they'd rather pay him a year not to work. So I mean, in all honesty, I think that would be the biggest reason if they don't, other than just the Lakers skidding out of control in a way where it's obvious just they've tuned out Vogel for whatever reason, or it's become clear they don't like him. And for what it's worth, I don't think that's the case at all. I think
the Boylan treatment. Yeah, you don't want.
But I don't think that's the case.
It's actually in some ways it's worse. They're trying.
Yeah. It's going to be really interesting too, just to see what happens, with these teams, assuming they can get to the playoffs, who's available, and just the type of push that you need to make, because, say whatever you will about where the Lakers are right now. And, they pushed in all their chips to get Anthony Davis. They then pushed in all their chips to get Russell Westbrook. And, they had been proactively clearing the decks for a couple years to bring in LeBron. So there was a lot of just constant turnover and proactive change, but they have a title to show for it. So if nothing else, the LeBron AD era will pay for itself. You guys are in a weird place right now where I wouldn't fault the Clippers for any of the moves that they made, but it was big swings to bring in George and Kawhi, and you have to win a title for that to be considered successful.
Yeah, and don't answer that yet. Let's talk about that. And then you guys have, I believe, a game that we can all play next. We'll do all of those things next.
Absolutely. Will, talk to us about these Built Bars, though. I am starving while we record this podcast. What on earth could I eat right now?
Well, if you're listening to Locked On Lakers and Locked On Clippers, you probably heard us talk about Built Bar. It's the best tasting protein bar on the market. But what you might not know is that Built Bar has so many delicious flavors. There's truly something for everyone. When you talk to a Built Bar fan, they're definitely passionate about their favorites. If you don't know the Built Bar flavors, you're missing
actually
out.
don't know. People who listen to our show, we never talk about the flavors. So this is new territory for them. Please keep going.
You got to talk about the flavors. They got coconut, cherry barcia, raspberry, mint brownie, double chocolate, salted caramel, strawberry, orange, cookies and cream, and German chocolate. Ooh, yummy. You want to know what my favorite flavor is?
What's that?
Mint brownie. You can't go wrong. Little mint, little chocolate. If you haven't tried all the flavors, you can get a mixed box where you'll get 2 of each of the 9 flavors. Look, talk about the flavors. Not only are these bars the best tasting, they're also healthy. Check out these macros. Each bar has 17 to 18 grams protein, calories ranging from 130 to 180, only 4 to 5 grams sugar, and only 4 to 5 grams net carbs. Amazing flavors, all tasty, all healthy. And right now, if you go to built.com and use promo code Locked On, you'll get 15% off your order. Use promo code Locked On for 15% off at built.com.
Well, Andy, the whole time we've been telling people they got one flavor, kale. No wonder we're not moving any Built Bars on our show.
They keep angrily tweeting us at Cam Brothers. I never understood why.
Jeez,
Really
should have been doing a better job. All right,
we've been
Andy,
talking
what
up
was
the
your
new
question again?
wheatgrass flavor.
What was your set up your question again?
Just what do you guys make of where the Clippers are right now with the big swings that they made to bring in Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, which was essentially a package move and directly connected to the Lakers because the Lakers had proactively cleared the decks in the beginning, absolutely thinking they were getting Paul George and LeBron. I think they were more sure for a little while about Paul George than actually LeBron, even though people thought both were a done deal. And then you may have noticed they spent a lot of that particular offseason waiting on Kawhi Leonard's decision, and he ended up going to the Clippers. And, that stung, and Rob Pelinka had to scramble. And ironically, that was the season that he set up a title contender. But the Clippers still are not in a period where they've paid off those swings. And I feel like if they don't win a championship, what they did, however justified, and I don't think any of it was bad decisions at all, it's a failure.
It's tough.
I feel like we're a Joe Ingles foul away from a championship. So it's like, that's just the game, right? Like, you have to take a big swing if you want to even be in that contention. And, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. We saw last season, like, don't get me wrong, the Suns are a great team and they're proving it again this year, but like, health was the biggest factor. And
Absolutely.
Not that it isn't a factor every single season, but like since, the health and safety protocols era, things are a little bit different. And I think that maybe the mathematics are a little bit different if you see the foresight of 2020, if you're in that summer, that free agency, looking into it with those eyes. But like, my thing is like, this was, I love this team, we haven't really ever won anything, but like, even getting to like a Western Conference Finals, that to me is a success from where we had been.
Oh, come on, man.
Look, so cute. It's such an adorable little accomplishment, a Western Conference Finals.
It is. And so that's what we have to put.
Does the banner wrap all the way around the arena when you guys put it up there?
Here's where it's difficult, because as a fan, we love the Western Conference Final appearance. We're hyped. We got the Terance Mann game in the series before and all that good stuff. But in the grand scheme of things, the swing is for a chip, right? You don't do any of this. Ballmer's not buying this team to go to a Western Conference Final. And things that we've heard is the team thinks the window is a little longer than maybe I think most of us do. Like, I think it's
17 years.
Yeah, we got next season for sure. If we run everything back the way the contracts are set up, pretty much the core is locked up, and I'm happy with that roster for sure. The year after that, it gets a little dicier, but the way the contracts are set up, we're still good. All hell breaks loose 3 seasons from now, I think, in terms of what could possibly happen. But I
And
mean,
there
like
is
you
a
said,
DEFCON 0 situation even this free agency. Like if you lose Nick Batum, like, you know, if Morris is injured or something, like if you can't, if you can't retain all of this talent, or, you know, you can't improve the roster, or we don't get the growth, it's not linear from some of these other roster guys like Luke Kennard or Terance Mann, whose growth has not been linear this year. Like, once again, that starts to compress that window even further.
or we trade for Rondo again, maybe ship off a fan favorite
That's
for a
available. Yeah, but
complete
it's funny you
negative
mentioned Terrence
basketball
Mann.
player.
You mentioned Terrence Mann. Like I was saying the other day when we were talking about the trade deadline and THT, like kind of reminding people every team has a THT. They
Right.
have a guy that they think has a lot of potential, that they made some investments in. Lakers financially, other teams with time or whatever. Exactly. And like for the Clippers, that's Terrence Mann. Like everybody thought, oh, he's going to break out this year. I don't from I've watched some Clippers games. Haven't been
Sure.
terrible. Just hasn't
But he's
broken out.
people before the season were asking us legitimately, sincerely, if he could be a most improved player candidate. And we were like, no, he's not going to average 20 plus and 7 plus, which is what most improved players average on those years. Like, the 39-point game against Utah was amazing, and we saw a comet flash across the sky at that moment. But he's older than Luke Kennard, which is weird to think about. Yes,
And it's not because Luke Kennard's 22, right?
No, it's not. I wish. But it's, and that's kind of, that goes to Lou, because Lou figured out how to max
40.
Yes.
How is that possible?
And that goes to Ty Lue, right? Like, it took some time to figure out Luke Kennard in the system. And now Terance Mann, like, if everyone's healthy, Terance Mann is kind of near the end of this roster. When Kawhi and PG come back, like, which is pretty interesting. But I mean, Jerry West likes him, so we'll just ride with that
kudos
for
to
now.
Luke Kennard for still being 25.
Yeah, it's kind of incredible.
Jerry West likes him. You're bringing up some salt in the wounds right now. I don't know if you saw Sam Amick's piece in The Athletic, but
I didn't know that it was like that between Jerry West and the Lakers. That is borderline. Like, I was very surprised he was just emptying the clip.
Yeah, I wasn't at all. I'm surprised he probably didn't empty the clip, which is really what
he's got another gun.
I mean, I don't blame the Lakers for everything that's going on here. I think there is a side to every story.
Sure.
And the Lakers were smart not to tell theirs in this feature, because picking a fight when you're 3 games under 500 with Jerry West is a bad idea. You're gonna lose. But he is not a happy person dispositionally. And
he's a serious man.
But he's seriously unhappy. Like, I know serious people who are happier. That he's just not a happy guy. In ways that are both fascinating and kind of depressing. But before we go, enough about Jerry West. The logo. What have you ever done for anyone? You guys got a game. Let's play a game real quick. I like this.
Yes. So every Friday we play Love, Marry, Quarantine. Very topical. And as such, as it seems like the Clippers and Lakers are headed into a stressful for everybody on this podcast play-in matchup.
Oh, God.
Where it's going to be hell.
You say that now until the Lakers lose to Portland at the beginning of that whole thing.
What a time to be alive.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Well, the Clippers are going to trade Nick Batum and Ivica Zubac for a point guard. So we're doing alternative ways the Clippers and Lakers could face off in a play-in without having to play basketball. So you're going to pick one of these to love, one of these to marry. That's your whole life. And quarantine, get it the hell away from you. We have team hot dog eating contest. Each team picks one person to participate in a hot dog eating contest. Whoever wins, you move on. We have a trip to Vegas. Each team picks one player, give them $1,000. Whoever comes back with the most money, that team goes to the next round. And then this one is a Will Updike classic, a GM fist fight. I think I know who has the edge in this one. It's Rob Pelinka versus Lawrence Frank. Winner goes to the next round. Kamenetsky brothers, what are you going with?
Andy, I am going to love the trip to Vegas because I think this is where some of the Lakers veterans could really shine.
Sure.
I feel like they know what they're doing. I feel very confident sending Melo to Vegas. I just feel like he knows what to do when he gets there.
He's got a guy.
They just, LeBron is probably pretty well set up in Vegas. I feel comfortable with that. So that's what I'm going to love. I'm I might marry the GM fist fight because I think Rob Pelinka is significantly taller than Lawrence Frank.
Oh yeah,
takes care of his body. I think if you've ever seen Lawrence Frank in person,
definitely takes care of his face.
Yeah.
What if he's a total disaster though? Like he's like one of them skinny fat people, like underneath, completely out of shape. No, but I think Rob's in pretty good shape. I know he's got reach on Lawrence Frank, so I think the GM fist fight probably does favor the Lakers. Because as much as Pelinka probably doesn't want to be punched in the face, I don't think Lawrence Frank can reach it. So that's good. And I am quarantining the hot dog eating contest. I think the Lakers would just get smoked in that. I don't know who I'd point to say you go eat a lot of hot dogs.
I mean, unless it's THT, the team's too old, man. Like they're in the antacid stage right now. Like none of them can handle.
Half the team is vegan, I think.
Oh, very good point. Yeah. And these are all beef. This is a real hot dog eating contest.
Yeah, I think Brian laid this out exactly as I would have. So kudos.
Right. Will, what are you going with?
I am. Oh man, I'm loving the GM fist fight. I got it. I don't know that I like our chances as much in that one, but I think there's a possibility. Lawrence Frank tags Pelinka a good one, and Pelinka just says no mas. No, thank you.
No, I think it's the opposite.
I'm good.
Pelinka goes full like Brad Pitt in Fight Club, shirtless, like. This is an opportunity to win a fight and show off the goods.
But perhaps Lawrence Frank tricks him with some poetry, or
sure.
A reading of an obscure economist from the 1930s.
I'm going to read you Common Sense. With this fight.
I got to marry the trip to Vegas. I think there might be some sharks on this Clippers roster. I would definitely trust Nick Batum with some of my money. I think that he is like one of those guys who kind of reads a table probably pretty well. A guy I'm not giving the money is definitely Reggie Jackson. That money's gone. That money's gone.
I feel like Isaiah Hartenstein could lose a lot of your money at the table.
Oh,
he doesn't seem like a reliable, disciplined gambler.
He would be the fastest to lose it. I'm also going to quarantine the hot dog eating contest. I'm not opposed to it. I just don't know who can really put him away like that. Maybe Zoo.
Okay,
I think Zoo could do it. Yeah,
I'm loving the hot dog eating contest. Luke Kennard's from Ohio. That seems like borderline the birthplace of hot dog eating contests. I don't know why, but it feels like it is. I feel like he's got some eating competition chops, maybe.
He's won a couple blue ribbons for sure.
Yeah. I think I'm marrying the trip to Vegas, and I would put it maybe with a young guy. I like Brandon Boston Jr.'s confidence. Why not?
Oh no!
Let's swing for the fences.
Bad idea.
It'd be either him or maybe Ty Lue if we could do coaches too. I would maybe let Ty Lue gamble.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Anybody who played NBA stakes poker, they know what they're doing.
With Michael Jordan, yeah.
Yeah. You learned a couple things.
Yeah. And then I got to quarantine the fist fight because I think Pelinka wears the ring from the championship, which doesn't help anything.
Yeah,
and I think Lawrence,
you guys have a ring for that Western Conference Finals appearance. Do they give rings for that?
We just have heartache. Whoa, you got us on. Wait, the Lakers have more championships.
That's right.
The Lakers won a championship.
Kind of a sensitive issue, isn't it?
Yeah. We've been so close so many times. But I think Lawrence Frank does the thing where he really trains. Like he's like, I'm gonna take a week. I'm gonna like lock myself in, with a UFC master, and he pays him too much, and they say you're doing great, Lawrence, and then he gets into the ring, and his hands are down, and he's leading with his head, and it's just over.
So you're thinking this is like a cage, like a sanctioned kind
Yeah,
of
it's
a
a
fight?
fist
I was
fight.
just thinking it was like an alley behind crypto.
Either way, Lawrence Frank is losing that too.
Yes, I tend to agree.
Or he
I
uses
will
his
say it's almost
surroundings.
guaranteed that if cheating is allowed, Rob Pelinka would be better at cheating than Lawrence Frank.
Sure. Yeah. Well, he saw
Oh,
the
yeah.
Dark Knight before anybody.
God.
All right. So we have to wrap up this respective crossover. This was so much fun.
Yes.
This was awesome, man. We
Looking
appreciate
forward
the
to
time,
doing it
guys.
again to preview the play-in game.
Oh God, yeah. Who knows what's gonna happen? So on our respective Monday episodes, we have to play the Bucks on Sunday, so we're gonna recap what will no doubt be a scintillating matchup with the Bucks. We're gonna do the freshies. We talk about the new guys. What does Locked On Lakers do on their Monday episodes?
We will be reacting to the Lakers game against the Knicks, which has truly become seriously must win. Like you guys better win this. Hopefully,
are you trying to play Portland?
we will hopefully have updates on Carmelo Anthony, who left the game with a hamstring injury. Hopefully have some updates on LeBron coming back. Hopefully this stuff is good because the Lakers cannot afford to go down personnel any more than they already have.
I'll tell you something. Nothing heals faster than a 37-year-old's hamstring. So looking forward to updates on that. We're in a deeply cynical place when it comes to this season, expecting bad things to be happening all the time. I suspect Carmelo might have to have his leg amputated before the end of the weekend. All right. Well, this is fun. Thank you guys for doing it. Check out Locked On Clippers. Check out Locked On Lakers. Thank you for making both of these shows your first listen of every day. I know that doesn't make sense, but we appreciate you trying. And we'll see everybody on Monday.